Imagine this for a moment. One quiet morning, Jack and Lytutien wake up to a surprise. They have just won $10 million in the lottery. 10 million. A number so big it almost makes people laugh in disbelief. But for them, money is no longer the most important thing. The first thing Jack says is not "what should I buy?" It is something much softer. "I want to go see everyone, the people who have been with us all this time." Tien smiles gently. Her eyes shine like the morning light. "Then, let's go." That morning, fog covered the hills behind the house. The wooden gate slowly opened. The smell of wet earth lingered in the wind after the night rain. Jack closed his laptop. He packed a few folders into his bag. He was about to hand the company to Uncle Dung, a close friend of Mother Loy, a man who had walked beside him during the hardest early days. "Go without worry," Uncle Dung said in a calm voice. "Work can wait, youth cannot." Jack nodded. Tien stood beside him. Her hand gently held his, her eyes quiet and warm. Before leaving, they stopped by the farm. There was Hoa, the friendly neighbor. He was watering the garden while joking. "Don't forget to send me postcards from every country, and if Tien's chicken lays golden eggs, I'll keep them all for myself." They both laughed. Their laughter melted into the wind. Then they climbed into the white pickup truck, the same one that had carried them through many sunny and rainy seasons. The door closed. The tires pressed softly against the red dirt road. The fog ahead slowly lifted. A journey had begun, not to spend money, but to search for the things that make life feel truly rich. They took their first flight to the places that felt closest to their hearts, countries that had sent them thousands of warm messages over the years. The Philippines was their first stop. In Manila, the sunlight was bright and joyful. A small group of fans waited outside a little coffee shop. They held a paper flower garland and a handwritten card. "Thank you for making our lives a little less sad." Jack didn't say much. He simply lowered his head and smiled gently. The way he always listens. When the afternoon came, they shared mango sticky rice, told stories, and took a few photos under a tamarind tree. No cameras, no stage lights, just people, real and simple. Next was Thailand. By the Chao Phraya River, Tien leaned her head on Jack's shoulder. The sunset painted the water gold. A group of young fans sang "Tomorrow Will Be Sunny" in Thai, their voices soft and warm. Tien smiled. Jack only tightened his hand around hers. No words were needed. In Indonesia, they arrived in Bali, where the sky and the ocean became one. A local boy handed them a small pencil drawing. Two people standing under palm trees, their smiles bright like sunlight. Tien looked at it for a long moment. "I think happiness is probably this simple." Everywhere they went, they carried home pieces of human stories. In Manila, there was a little girl with a heart condition. She had once written to Jack, "When I feel sad, I listen to your voice and I feel calm again." Jack visited her home, quietly handed an envelope to her mother. No camera, only a look of gratitude. In Chiang Mai, a young man who once battled depression shared that Tien's kind words on a live stream had helped him rise again. He gave her a small flower pot. The soil was still damp. "Plant it again," Tien said, "so you'll remember. Anyone can bloom if they have enough light." As the early days of their journey passed, the path carried them further. To Japan, to Korea, to Taiwan, and to India. Places far away, but hearts surprisingly close. In Tokyo, they arrived during cherry blossom season. Pink petals fell softly onto their shoulders. A stranger bowed, whispered in Japanese, Arigato for your kindness." Jack turned to Tien, smiled. In that single look, they both understood. No language is needed when it comes from the heart. In Seoul, fans had created a tiny exhibition, walls covered with fan drawings and handwritten letters. Tien stared at them for a long time, her eyes shimmering as if holding back tears. Jack stepped closer. "If I could, I'd bring each of these home and hang them in the living room." In Taipei, there was a small tea shop on a quiet street. The owner was a longtime fan. She once studied in Vietnam. Her hands shook a little as she handed them warm milk tea. "I never thought this day would come," she said. Tien smiled softly. "We never thought we'd come this far either." And in India, they walked through a market bursting with colors. Tien wore a bright red sari. Jack laughed. "Now I understand why they call this the land of light." Surrounded by the sound of people and the scent of spices, they suddenly felt so small and so deeply happy. After many days wandering through Asia, Jack and Tien continued their journey, this time to the other side of the world. A long overnight flight brought them to the United States, a place they had only seen through a screen before. In New York, the buildings reached into the sky. Lights shone like daylight. The square was crowded. Then suddenly someone shouted, "Jack, lytutien." It was a group of Vietnamese students, young faces full of excitement. They brought a small speaker, played a familiar melody, and together they sang "Tomorrow Will Be Sunny." There was no stage, no spotlight. But at that moment, in a foreign city, their voices became a bridge, like they had never been far apart at all. Tien tilted her head back and looked at the night sky. The lights reflected softly on her face. "It's strange," she whispered. "No matter how far we go, we always find each other." From the United States, they flew to Brazil, a land of sunlight and warm eyes. A group of local fans greeted them with a large flower garland. A young man handed Jack a football jersey, Jack 10 printed on the back. He spoke in broken English. "You give me hope." Jack held the shirt close. He said nothing. A simple thank you would never be enough. But his eyes said it all. In Rio de Janeiro, they sat together on the beach, listening to the sound of the waves. They did not need grand words. Being together was enough. The world suddenly felt so close. The final part of their journey was Europe, a place they had always dreamed of visiting. In Paris, they stood in Trocadero Square, the Eiffel Tower glowing in the distance. Amid the moving crowd, a young girl stepped forward. She held out a single red rose. "Thank you for making me believe kindness still exists in this world." Tien took the rose and bowed slightly. She held it gently for the entire flight afterward. In Italy, they walked hand in hand through old stone streets. The golden lights shimmered on the wet pavement after the rain. Jack looked at her and spoke softly. "I once thought, if I had money, I'd build a big house. But now, I only want to see the world with you." In England, a small group of fans gathered at a quiet cafe by the Thames. No banners, no shouting, only soft, teary eyes. One girl handed them a notebook. Inside were letters from people in many different countries. Every page carried the same message. "Thank you for making life feel a little more worth living." Their journey ended on a quiet afternoon. The white pickup truck rolled once again down the red dirt road, the same road that led home. The world outside seemed to hold its breath, waiting for them to return. Mother Lois stood on the porch, her gray sweater loose on her shoulders, a few strands of silver hair catching the light. Jack stepped out of the truck. In his hands were a bouquet of roses from Paris and a bag full of small gifts. Tien ran into her arms like a child returning home. "Mom, we brought the whole world back to you." Mother Loy laughed. The wrinkles at the corners of her eyes deepened, but her gaze was brighter than the sunset. "I don't need gifts. I only need the two of you home." Her words were soft as wind, but they warmed every corner of their hearts. That night, the three of them sat outside the house. The sound of crickets mixed with the wind. Jack leaned back in a bamboo chair, eyes looking up at the starry sky. Tien sat beside him, a gentle smile on her lips. Her hair danced in the night breeze. $10 million can buy many things, but what they brought home had no price. The song in a distant square, the paper garland from a little girl in the Philippines, the football jersey from a boy in Brazil, the red rose from Paris, and the arms of a mother waiting at home. "If someone asks me what the best thing about winning the lottery is," Jack said softly, "I'll tell them it's knowing the world is so big. And still, there are so many hearts that care." Tien looked at him without saying a word. She simply held his hand, tight. Outside, the moon rose, its light spread across the unfinished brick yard. A journey came to an end, not with fireworks, but with peace. Some people use money to buy houses, to buy cars, to chase after shiny things. But Jack and Lytutien chose something different. They chose to travel around the world, and then return to where everything began. Because the most precious things are never in the bank. They live inside the hearts of people, everywhere. If one day you have a lot of money, don't just ask what you can buy. Ask yourself, where do you want to take your heart? If you enjoyed this story, please leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe. More beautiful fan-made stories are waiting for you. See you again soon.